Hey, I'm RC, and in this video I'll try my best to explain how run warping works in Zelda Ocarina of Time. So keep in mind that run warping is a very complex topic, and I simply want to show you the basics in this video. So first of all, when the game wants to teleport Link, it needs to check two different variables. The first variable is the next map ID, which can be, for example, EE. This is base 16 numbers, by the way. So EE is the Kokiri Forest, but the game also needs another variable called the setup to know how to run the map. So the same map can have multiple setup. For example, Kokiri Forest when you're a child and it's the day, Kokiri Forest during a certain cutscene, Kokiri Forest with another cutscene. So this is why the setup variable is needed. So for example, if the setup is 4, then the final destination is the sum of the two, so it will be F2. And if you tell the game teleport me to F2, then it will teleport you in the Kokiri Forest and it will play the cutscene where you talk with the Deku Tree for the first time, for example. Internally, the game has a big list of all the different setup and map possible. So for example, EE is the Kokiri Forest setup 0, so it's the Kokiri Forest when you're a child and it's the day. There's also EF, which is Kokiri Forest setup 1, child at night, and there are 3 entrances that are very important when you do the Ganondorf glitch. There's the F3, which is the Kokiri Forest setup 5, which is the cutscene you're supposed to watch after doing the blue warp, so after killing Goma. There's also the 252 entrance, which is the Deku Tree room before the boss, setup 0. So this is where the 231 Deku Scrub are. And finally, there's the 257 entrance, which is the Tower Collapse Interior, setup 1. This is where we will end up after doing the run warp. So when you enter a blue warp, this is what happens. So it sets your next map ID to EE, which is the Kokiri Forest. It sets your setup to 5, and then it starts a timer. Normally what's going to happen is that when the timer reaches 101, it will teleport you to EE plus 5, which is F3, and F3 is Kokiri Forest, where you talk with the Deku Tree after the blue warp. So this is the normal behavior. But what you do when you do the wrong warp is that you enter another room on the same frame than the teleport. And what it does is that it overrides the next map ID with 252, which is the room before Goma. So when it teleports you to next map ID plus setup, which is 252 plus 5, which is 257, the Tower Collapse Interior. So long story short, this is what's going on. So normally what's supposed to happen is that you're teleported in front of the Deku Tree, so in the Kokiri Forest, and then you do plus 5 for the setup, and it's the Deku Tree cutscene where you receive the Kokiri Emerald. But what's going on is that when you do the wrong warp is that you open the door, so you end up in the map before the boss room, and then you do plus 5 and you end up in the Ganon Castle. So I've made a fully detailed guide about this glitch, so run warping from the Goma bus room all the way to the Ganon Castle, and if you want to check it out, then simply click the annotation on the screen. So another very important thing to understand about run warping is that opening a door is a way to override the next map ID, but there are other ways. So one of them is to die on the same frame, then the blue warp teleports you, and by doing that it will override the next map ID with the location you're supposed to spawn after dying. So if you do the death run warp in the Goma bus room, you will override the next map ID with the entrance of the Deku Tree, and then you do plus 5 and you will end up in the entrance of the Dogondo Cavern. I also have a video about that if you want to check it out, so simply click the annotation on the screen. There's also another type of run warp with the Eyeball Frog, so this is a adult trade quest item. When you have it, there's a timer. When the timer reaches 0, you're teleported to the King Zora in the Zora domain. And if you are teleported on the same frame, then the blue warp teleports you, then you will end up in the Zora domain plus 5, which is the long range during the Epona song cutscene. So not really useful, unfortunately. There's also another type of run warp with a glitch trade item. So let's say that you have an Eyeball Frog, but you override it with a bottle, for example. Then instead of teleporting you to the Zora domain when the timer reaches 0, it will teleport you to the map you're currently in. So the final destination with the run warp will be the map you're so the Gamma Bus Room +5, and it equals the Bongo Bongo map in the Shadow Temple, so very useful. I also have a video about that. It's very useful for all dungeons, for example. There's also a way to do a run warp with the Odd Mushroom Timer, which is also a trade item. However, doing that will always crash the game, so it's not really useful. So you can perform the run warp in the Gamma Bus Room, but you can also do it in the Dogongo Cavern. And what's supposed to happen normally is you're teleported in the Death Mountain Trail, then +5 for the setup, and it ends up to be the cutscene where you receive the stone. But if you manage somehow to go up and open the door on the same frame that the blue warps teleport you, you will be teleported in the room before the boss +5, which is a Kokiri house. So it's really not useful and it's very hard to do. So nobody really does that. However, there's one run warp that is very useful in many categories. It's the Death Run Warp. So you're teleported in the Dogondo Cavern entrance, then you do +5, and it ends up to be the Gerudo Training Ground. Very useful for many categories. I got a video about that if you want to check it out. After that, there's the Eyeball Frog Run Warp. So Zora Domain +5 is the Epona cutscene, so not very useful. However, with the glitch trade item, it's the Bus Room +5, and it ends up to be the Gamma Bus Room, which can be useful in a couple categories and in bingos. You can check out a guide I've made about that. And finally, there are the Fire Temple Run Warps. So the reason why the Fire Temple Run Warp works, but not the other temples, is because you see a cutscene before being teleported to the Chamber of Sages, so it's exclusive to the Fire Temple. The other temples teleport you directly to the Chamber of Sages, and it's screw everything. But with Fire Temple, normally you are teleported to Kakariko +7, so in this case it's setup 7. So Kakariko +7 equals the Kakariko cutscene where you see the volcano. Now if you manage to open the door at the same time than the teleport, it will be the room before the boss +7, which ends up to be the Ganon Castle. Very useful, I got a guide about that. There's the Run Warp if you die on the same frame, so Fire Temple entrance +7 is the Forest Temple. Very useful, I got a video about that. And the Eyeball Frog, it's the Zora Domain +7, teleports you to Long Long Ranch, and this time it's not the Epona cutscene, it's the credit cutscene, and this is very useful for the Ganonless category, so I got a video about that. And finally, with the glitch trade item, it's the Bus Room +7, and it's a crash, so you cannot do this, it will simply crash the game. So I guess that's pretty much it about this video. I hope you liked it, and if you want more information about run warping, you can check out on zeldaspeedrun.com. So it's a very handy website for run warping, but also speedrunning in general. So thanks again for watching, and see ya!